Hey, you're watching a small video from my larger course. If you do want the bigger course, there'll be a link just down here somewhere. Hey, welcome to this video. We're going to be talking about buyer personas or user profiles. Now, they're the same thing, different words for the same thing, and they are key to every UX project. It's a way of keeping everybody on the same page. So if you don't have things like buyer personas, then you can have the development guys thinking, or girls thinking, oh, this is who it's for, and they're developing for them. The copywriters thinking it's somebody else, everybody coming up with their own ideas of who this thing is for. You might have a general consensus. Without a clear user profile, they can go off and everybody designing different things for different people. So buyer personas look like this. They are super simple. They just have basic details about the person. You need to give it a name. I don't know why, but you got to give them a physical name just so that when you're talking about it, you're talking about say some of my user profiles for some of the courses that I do might be Developer Dave. Okay, Developer Dave is X, Y, and Z, but for some reason he's got to be called Developer Dave, or Website Wendy is another one. I don't know why. They both have to have the same first letters. Okay, you can rock that boat. But you come up with the basic details, not too much detail. I've seen some user profiles that are like a full A4 page, maybe 2 pages long about their profile. Now, you just want what's relevant to your product. You don't want to know what they've had for breakfast unless your product or your website is about what they have for breakfast. What car they drive is not that useful unless your app is for driving. Okay, or racing, or it gives some sort of benefit, and kind of really helps understand the person. So keep it short and simple. Make sure you print them out, you stick them to the walls around when everybody is, okay, in the meeting rooms, in the kitchens, that everybody knows and can be reminded about what you're there for. You're there for Developer Dave and what his interests are. Now, the most important part of creating a user profile is actually using them. As a UX designer, I know that they're useful and I use them and I work to them. It's great to have conversations and meetings to say, instead of saying, I don't think you should be using that, I say, Developer Dave doesn't really like that. So you can have these kind of like third-party conversations without getting everybody's back up. But as a business owner, I get a little scared of them, okay? Because I want to launch a new product or a new service, and I don't want to kind of narrow it down to the buyer persona in case I'm wrong, okay? And I exclude some people. So I want it to be, generic, and I make it maybe a bit too much. Everything for everybody becomes nothing for nobody, okay? So you need to kind of keep it down to, bring it back to this user profile. Don't be afraid to change your user profile. If it's not working, test it. If it's not working, adjust it, adapt it, but don't make them and then file it away in the drawer and never use them, okay? Print them off, stick them where people can see them, in meeting rooms, next to the developers, near the copywriters. If it's just you, put them up in your bedroom, just so that you can, be reminded of you're developing for, Developer Dave or Website Wendy, okay? Whoever you decide your user profiles are, okay, and their names, that you can have those, have them up and around. Now, when you're creating a user profile, you really need to do it as a group. Don't just do it as a UX designer, okay? Do it by yourself and then kind of deliver it to them and say, here's our profiles. They might be right, but they won't get what's really important, and it's the buy-in from what's called the stakeholders. I hate that word, okay, stakeholders, but it gets used lots in UX, and you need to start using it. And it's the people that have an interest in the, interest in the project. It might be the business owner, it might be the CFO, it might be, one of the investors, it might be the HR manager because it relates to her or him. So make sure everybody's involved with making the buyer personas. And because what happens is if you do it by yourself and deliver it, they can say, ooh, and it doesn't go well, and that's like, it's your buyer persona, like I didn't agree with it. But if you do it together, I'm going to give you some rules and some tips of how to do it together. But you can imagine if you all put this time and effort together, it doesn't have to be long, but you come up with them together, then you've all got an invested interest, or at least everybody's on the same page. Nobody can say later on, oh, geez, that buyer persona that Dan came up with really wasn't on the mark, okay? You want everybody to be working together to build it so that they've got an interest in it, and when they're testing it, they understand it fully and really kind of embrace it. So make sure you do it together and build it together, even if you are kind of set off to do it by yourself. Try and draw everybody back in to build up personas. Now, how many buyer personas should you have? One or two. Okay, you don't need 5 probably, you definitely don't need 10, I've seen them all. Okay, you just really want to have just enough, okay, to get it really clear, but without having too many conflicting personas, it's not helpful. Okay, I've tried it, it doesn't work. Where you might have to have, say, 3 is when you've got a product that has lots of kind of different people coming from different directions. One example is I was helping somebody with, it's like an accounting online kind of SaaS solution for online accounting. Now, they had very clearly different roles for that. So instead of just different people using it, let's say, like for my business, I use something called Xero. Now, Xero would have different profiles because they've got me as the business owner using it. I need to use a certain amount of tools and use it for a certain kind of way. Okay, I'm looking at reporting. I'm looking at everything really, but one of my biggest things is the kind of like monthly reports, okay, profit and loss, those sorts of things. Now, somebody else in my business, okay, that does the bookkeeping, her role is just producing invoices and chasing invoices up. Okay, so they want to use the product very differently from what I want to use. I want to use a lot more features, but I don't want to make the invoices. That's not my, it's not what I want to do. Okay, so there's that. And then there's, say, some of my staff. My staff want to be using it differently. They use Xero in a way where all they do is put their receipts in, okay, and just claim expenses. That's all they want to use. They use an app, okay. I use the website version. So there's lots of people coming at this bit of software lots of different ways. So that's where you might have, a lot more personas, but say it's a website, often you only need 1 or 2, and that's what I try and stick to. Now, there's 2 ways of making personas. You can do it from existing data. If you have some, borrow some data from other industries. Otherwise, you might have to, if it's quite new or quite unique, you might have to, do a best guess and then test that persona through your user testing process and kind of refine it as you learn more and get more and, examine more. So let's go and look at good ways of getting stuff from existing data. Great, so let's go through and see where you can pull information for your persona from your existing data. Now, you might be like me and you might have something like Google Analytics or Omniture or the Adobe version, okay, some sort of website tracking software. Okay, and for me, the nice thing about it is that, and maybe you say you're doing work for somebody else, you could ask for access to this. It's not hard to gain access to share for somebody to share the data with you. What you can do in, come in here under Audience, go to Overview. And under Overview, there is a few little things you can look at. Demographics is the one you want. Go to Overview. You can see easily here who on this current site, okay, who the age groups, okay, 25 to 34. It's mainly, is it mainly male or female? You can see mine's heavily male and mainly in this age group here. And what you can do is you can dig a little deeper, so you can go into age. Okay, that's the overview part, and you can start to see kind of a little bit of a breakdown. And over here, now my tracking over here is not hooked up on this site here, which is really bad of me. But what happens on other sites that I've got is that I know for a fact that even though this is 25 to 34 is my highest user, I know through other ways of tracking that actually this 35 to 44 is actually the majority of people that actually pay. So even though it's the 3rd smallest group, it's actually my most, the people that actually stay the longest on the site. You can see here a lot longer than these other groups. You can see it's funny, like the 18 to 24, a lot shorter, longer, okay? And as the age group gets higher, the average duration, that means they're staying on the site longer. And I know through other ways of tracking that the transactions are a lot higher. So if you can get access to this, you can do some nice things and kind of rule out, a user profile that you might have considered that is like 20, that is just out of university and needs, to upskill. I know through my training sites that it's, people that are a little bit more mature in my age group that are happy to pay for good training. So, same with gender. Okay, this is really interesting for me because I run both classroom training and online training, and classroom is complete flip of this. It's mainly about 70% female and 30% male that turn up to in-class stuff. But in terms of online training, it's mostly male. Okay, and that's across all the websites that I manage. So yeah, it really helps me get my personas nice and clear. Under interests is another one. Go to overview. You might be interested in how they get this data. There's things in your browser called cookies, and all the advertising groups track and try and work out bits. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. It's accurate enough. You can see here the most, my interests. The most interested in my site here is technophiles. Okay, that's really broad. There's some kind of like subgroups over here, but it's kind of useful. Shutterbugs, okay, because I do kind of photography stuff, and it can help kind of inform it. And everything else, another big one is geo. Okay, so if you're dealing with languages, that might be important. Mine's not. Mine's all English on this site here. And if I go to location though, and this is really important. So most of my business for this site comes from the US, a huge amount, 33%, and the next is 6 from the UK. Okay, but if I go into here, what this really helps me with my persona is, it's people English speaking and in America in these states. So California and Texas are my biggest ones. It's amazing what kind of details you can go into these things and kind of dive in, and you can start to see, in California, which cities are the highest ones. So San Francisco, San Jose, and what that's helped me to do, regardless of like UX and user profiles, those sorts of things are really interesting for me because I do lots of help online. So I do kind of video monthly sessions where I jump onto YouTube and do a kind of a live chat, and I just make sure my time zones kind of align to these groups. Okay, if it was big in the UK, it would be a very different time zone. So anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Another one, behavior. No, technology is a useful one. So the main one that I like is mobile. If we go to overview, it's going to tell me some interesting stuff about desktop versus mobile versus tablet. So this is a really useful one if you are doing this persona where, how are they accessing this site? If it is mobile, okay, say it's flipped around and it's, 80% mobile, I'd spend a lot more time testing my mobile version. And in this case, because mine's hugely desktop, I don't ignore mobile, but it's not my main focus. Mainly people are using my site and interacting with my content, 80% of them through desktop. So that's where my kind of first point of call is. And when I'm designing, I design desktop first instead of mobile first, which a lot of people like at the moment. If you're doing with apps, it's going to be obviously different. Everything else in there's little bits and pieces, but that's the big stuff. Now, in terms of other existing data, you can go pay scale. We looked at this earlier, but if you have a profile and you've decided it's, your profile is a woman, she's in communications, she's mid-level, she's this, that, and the other, what you can do is you can go in here and figure out what kind of salary she's at. So it helps you kind of inform, whether she has disposable income, what kind of pay scale they're on. You might be thinking one thing, you think, oh yeah, they earn heaps. But then you actually go off and find out that they don't, okay, or they do. So use pay scale is a nice one. Another thing you can do is YouTube. So check that if it's yours or whether you're working for a client, ask if you can access to their YouTube, even if you just give you screenshots, okay? They don't have to give you super access. But if I look at this one here, this is my YouTube channel, and under analytics down here, okay, it's similar to analytics that we just saw before from Google Analytics. YouTube one here has some slight different stuff. So this is the people using the content on my site. I give away a lot of free stuff. And the things I'm looking for is overview. I'm looking for demographics again. Okay, and you can start to see 25 to 34. Okay, it's a different kind of skew in terms of the numbers of people watching the videos. Okay, but similar. And male to female, a lot more male, a lot less female. And you can dig in a little bit deeper, so you can view the gender and what else? Viewer age. Okay. You can dig into these guys here to see that's my biggest age group. You can start to see as part of that age group who they are. There's little bits of extra details in here. And this one here is quite nice, geography. Okay, United States is huge. India is huge here, but did you notice that on my content on my site, it's actually from the UK? Okay, was my second biggest one. UK is fourth down here. So you got to kind of aggregate this type of information to try and work out your user profiles. And the last thing you can do is surveys. Now, I run surveys regularly. When I say regularly, every time I need to ask a question, I'll send a survey. So if you're part of this course, you'll probably get a survey sooner or later. I'll probably do it once a month or every 2 months. And what it allows me to do, SurveyMonkey is a great free tool. I use this one. It gives you everything you need mostly, as long as your numbers are not too low. Like I don't have a huge amount of people to email, so it's free. What it helps me do is helps the people that fill out the surveys. I ask questions about who they are, what they do, what they like about the site, what they like more, and it helps me, get that kind of user profile nice and tight, and I get an understanding of it. Now, there's a whole science to asking kind of these survey questions. So go off, do some research, send out a Survey Monkey to the people that you might have access to. They might be signed up to a newsletter, or you might grab, you might ask from the client to be able to send an email to the last month's transactions, okay, to see if you can get some feedback for your user profile. All right, one of the last things you can do for looking for existing data, if you don't have any kind of specific stuff about your users, like I've got for some of mine, I've got analytics and I've got YouTube, is you can go to things like the census, or you can go to industry groups. Quite often they'll sell you, traits and kind of like reports about a certain industry. So you can go and do those ones to get a more generic look at it. And if you can't find anything, in there that's useful, just make it up, okay? Make some good assumptions and then test them. So come up with a user profile based on best guess, and then go through the design and testing loop, and then start to see who are the people that are engaging with it. When you get your first few clients as well, go through and maybe adjust your user profile and just keep everybody up to date, with where you're at. And especially at the beginning when you haven't got a really clear pictures, it's going to be a bit of a fluid thing until you get a bit more of a solid understanding of who your users are. Hey, did you enjoy the course? If you want to see the full, big, long, unedited version, there'll be a link just down here.